Good day, my name is Mr. Nigel Linton, Technical Director of Diamond Football Club and Aces Football Academy. I'm also a coach educator for the Anguilla Football Association and CONCACAF. Prior to COVID-19 pandemic, we were in the middle of the season planning for two rounds of competitive football. We were actually doing some coaching development with our coaches. Everything had to come to an halt. So gave us an opportunity to immediately go to the drawing board. At club level, we immediately had to shut down. And what we did is we went into personal development sessions for our coaches via virtual platforms such as Zoom. We also implemented virtual sessions for our players, teaching them the game from a different way, and also assigning them tasks and responsibilities to finish in a set period of time and monitoring them. We were also allowed to coach in small groups, one-on-one coaching sessions. From the coach education standpoint, at the association and the CONCACAF level, we got a chance to meet with our coaches, see what we're doing, use that time to give personal development to all our coaches, and even network a little bit more. Interestingly, Anguilla is one of the countries who had only 3 cases, and we actually COVID free for about 2 months. We went back to the table again, looking at what we used to do before, looking at what we would want to do going forward, what measures from COVID we are going to keep in what we're doing going forward, and those that we could upgrade from what we were doing before. So it gave us an opportunity on all levels as coaches, coach educators, to improve the product which we deliver to the football fans. It is now living life with COVID. As much as we are COVID free as a country and a community, we still have to understand that the global world which we function in, COVID is still existent. So we have to prepare that if our players have to go into that international or regional market, of how to function in a COVID environment. And for me, personally, it was a learning lesson and a learning experience of we can no longer sit and be comfortable with 4 and 3 and 2 year long-term plans. Things could change in a matter of days, in a matter of 6 weeks. So in terms of planning and new norms, me personally, I'm looking at plans in a 6-week block, that rather than that long-term plan, because anything could happen. COVID is over, yes, but we are also in the hurricane season. So as much as we have plans and new norms and protocols in place, it's possible that all of this could be changed. It was nice sharing my experience of pre-post COVID pandemic. And I say to anybody that life would continue, is how flexible we are and how willing we are to be transformational leaders with a growth mindset and adjust at whatever situation comes our way.
Take it out, come on, take it.
Good morning, everyone. My name is Denise Wisdom. I am a lecturer in the Caribbean School of Sports Sciences. Let us pray. Heavenly Father, we are truly grateful for all the blessings you have bestowed upon us. Thank you for allowing us to meet and share our knowledge and time with one another in this webinar. We ask that you extend your divine wisdom to our panelists so that they will be able to impart effectively their knowledge to all of us. Bless them as they bring their expertise to those who need them. Bless the participants so that they will be able to garner vital information from this activity. We thank you, Lord, that we will go out and spread what we learned in the spirit of kindness and love. As we adjust to these times, finding joy where we can, Let us remember to take time for what we are grateful for. Bless Jamaica land we love. Amen. I will now hand over to Dr. Donna Marie Winter Adams, Head of School of the Caribbean School of Sciences.
Good morning, everyone, and a special welcome to you joining us as we present Code Reset, practical ideas for sport to thrive in the new normal. We are from the Caribbean School of Sports Sciences, CSOS, in the Faculty of Science and Sport at the University of Technology. And as part of Brand Jamaica, we take pride in producing work-ready graduates for careers in athletic training, coaching, media, facilities, and sports management. Our graduates are well equipped to treat, train, and manage world-class athletes. And because at UTECH we are steeped in the art of putting theory into practice, we thought it incumbent on us to put together this panel of sport practitioners and consultants who can reset the code as we thrive in the new norm, as we say, new norm out of the pandemic. It is something that we did in semester 2. We quickly adapted to the new norm. We were still engaged in practical sessions whilst we were on lockdown. We were teaching badminton, volleyball, tennis, football, strength and conditioning, and other practical areas. We used so many different platforms because we wanted the experience, and we are University of Technology. We should be able to Zoom, we should be able to video on WhatsApp, use Microsoft Teams, Google Classroom, GoToMeeting, or the official platform for UTECH, Blackboard Collaborate. We used it all. We like to think that we stepped up our game. We use integrative approach that increase our students' ability to conduct sport performance analysis. After all, this is the hallmark of the major sporting teams, breaking down sporting performance through video analysis, being able to stop, to repeat, to slow down, in order to assess every skill or action. So as you can see, we looked at the Chinese word and we saw opportunity in this crisis. That's what all good sportsmen do. They snatch victory from the jaws of defeat. In this case, we were not going to bow down to COVID-19. There are many things that we learned, and we wish to share them with you, our partners. We learned that maintaining physical distance does not mean not being fit, and it certainly does not mean no physical education for our charges. It means meeting and sharing with them on their own level in the techno zone, I call it. We couldn't put everything together in one package, so this is a two-part series. Part 2 will visit sport administration during the pandemic, and this will be on August 8th. We're going to have some entertaining, knowledgeable speakers. Keith Wellington will be there, Dalton Myers, Marva Bernard, Carol Beckwood. They're going to provide insight into managing athletes and organizations at the national and at the international level in this new norm as we move forward. So please remember, save the date, August 8th. As most of you know, UTECH Jamaica team works closely with several sporting organizations. Last summer, we hosted our Safeguarding Children in Sport workshop for football coaches. This summer, we are pleased to endorse Drive Phase as they host a Safeguarding Children in Sport webinar on Saturday, July 25 at 6 p.m. I want you to join Dalton Myers as he skillfully navigates the safe places with the children's advocate, Mrs. Dan Gordon Robinson. We're going to have sports scientist Kendia Brathwaite, and listen to the stories and experiences of sport journalist Karen Madden and U.S. Center for Safe Sports CEO Juris Colon. So I ask you, as you engage us now in this webinar, I ask that you listen keenly, participate through questions and sharing your best practices as we put the try in triumph over this pandemic. Today's program will be moderated by the multi-talented sports specialist, Mr. Andre Waugh. Andre is a past lecturer and course coordinator at UTECH Jamaica. Currently, he uses his administrative and consulting skills as the development manager at CAP. He's well suited to guide the discussion as we pass from pre-COVID experiences to the COVID era. He's going to dribble past the lockdown inertia, serve full weight activities, and score with exercise success after by administrative and technical challenges. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to this our webinar, and I now turn you over to our program moderator, Andre Wall.
Thank you so much, Dr. Winter Adams. You did a blistering first leg. It will certainly be a difficult task to match up to. Welcome everyone to Code Reset, where we will explore practical tips for sport to thrive in the new norm. Today's panel discussion is being brought to you by the Caribbean School of Sports Sciences and Faculty of Science and Sport at the University of Technology. Our distinguished multidisciplinary panel includes Andre Virtue, CONCACAF coach educator, former national football player, CEO and coach at Ballers International, Dr. Lori Lawrence, former lecturer at the University of Technology, physiotherapist extraordinaire, CEO of Everything Therapy. Thank you for being here with us, Dr. Lawrence. Simon Tomlinson, national table tennis player, UTECH alumnus, and proud graduate of the Caribbean School of Sport Sciences. And finally, Mrs. Nahil Brown, Legislator, lecturer, University of Technology, in the Caribbean School of Sport Sciences. Let me welcome all you out there in our viewership out there in YouTube land. Certainly, it's a pleasure to have you. It is a fantastic day here in Portmore, Jamaica. I hope wherever you're from, that is you're experiencing the same. I recently heard one speaker saying that every day is a great day. If you don't believe that, try missing one. So we're indeed grateful to be here to share with you. The panelists are ready and they're ready to go. I don't think there's anyone else in Jamaica who is more prepared to share the knowledge that they have with you. Certainly, we'll be discussing practical tips because they've all in some shape and form encountered and have had to deal with the issues that they have been confronted with by the pandemic. So we want to get into the discussions because I'm sure you're here to get some takeaways, things that you can put in your program to ensure that your programs remain viable. One of the things with the pandemic is that it has caused several negative impact. From an economic standpoint, we're seeing where researchers are showing, for example, in the United States, over $100 billion was lost in 2 to 3 months. Certainly, I did some research today, and when I went through the UNDP's report on the financial impact of on Jamaica, sport was not listed as one of the industry. So there was really no financial impact being recorded or being shared with us. That is something for the University of Technology. I would charge you, in doing that study so that we can be absolutely sure as to how this pandemic has impacted us from an economic standpoint. Certainly, we know for sure from a social standpoint, having to deal with social distancing, having not been able to capitalize on the benefit that sport offers of people being in the same space, people sharing, people working together on teams, that we have certainly lost that for much of six months. We are also looking at the health benefits of sport, which again, that has been impacted negatively. So panelists are here and they're ready to go. And again, the idea is for us to explore practical tips that you, our listeners, can use to continue delivering your sport program and continue impacting our athletes. I want to go straight into the discussion, and with us we have Simon Tomlinson. I want to start with you, Simon, because you are a national representative. And I saw a very fascinating story on one of the newscasts on your return to Jamaica. So I just want to start with you to share your experience with us as what your plans were prior to the pandemic, and of course what your experience was being in quarantine?
Okay. All right. Good morning, everyone. Thanks for having me. Um, before COVID hit, the plan was for us to try and qualify for the Olympics. So myself and my partner Kane Watson, we were traveling through Europe. We played tournaments in Spain, Portugal, and Sweden. And we were in the middle of our training camp in Spain when the virus started spreading a lot more. And of course, at that point, Spain is one of the worst hit areas. So we had to get out as quickly as possible. Sadly, the US started banning flights from Europe into the US, so we couldn't fly back on our prearranged flights. So we had to take a reroute through Panama and then get to Jamaica. When we got here, and of course the scenes in the airport, it was ridiculous. Everyone's wearing masks. For certain parts it looked like a ghost town in the airport, which is normally packed. We flew through Madrid, and it's a hub for Spain. So it was a sight seeing all that happen. Get to Panama, and then same thing. We have to be getting tested, going through all the checkpoints there, and then flying back home, where Ministry of Health officials met us at the airport, gave us a full briefing on what the scenario was here and what they wanted from us. So we had to go into a 2-week quarantine, just full isolation, no contact with anybody outside, not allowed to leave home. We have to sign documents saying if we leave, we can be arrested and or fined if they come to the house to check on us and we're not there. So it was staying in quarantine was not easy. It was pretty difficult staying in the same place for 2 weeks. But it's just something that we had to get through. So that's pretty much what the experience was for us, and it's pretty much what we're continuing to do now. Just going outside sometimes.
And I'm sure it must have been even more difficult having to quarantine with Mr. Watson.
He snores. But other than that, it's fine.
So the plan was to qualify for the Olympics. Was that the plan?
That's correct. So we were playing tournaments. The idea was for us to play tournaments in Europe, get used to the level, the world-class level all over again, and improve our world rankings, which we did. So we were pretty much on par for where we wanted to be ahead of qualification. But seeing as Olympics has now been pushed back, we have to try and get that done again next year.
Yeah. And how has that affected you from an emotional standpoint?
Emotionally, it's difficult because, as an athlete, the premier event in your life is Olympics. That's what everyone's goal is. So for us to not only finally be on par with the people that we're trying to qualify against, but then to have it half taken away when we were making such good progress and had momentum going forward, it's difficult, and it's hard to try and refine that motivation all over again. But it's just something that we have to do.
Yeah, I asked that question primarily because anyone who knows you knows of the sacrifice that you have made. I was once your academic advisor, and we know how many things you have delayed in order to get to this point. But I'm going to come back to you a little bit later in our program, Simon, just to get a view of what is it that you are now doing, because the Olympic is now 2021. What are the things that you're doing? But we'll come back and we'll pick that up a little bit later, because I wanna speak with my good virgin here, Andre Vertio, about ballers and how what are the challenges that they have faced because of this pandemic.
Yeah, well, thanks for the opportunity. Definitely, all of us have been impacted by COVID. We coach kids between 3 and 16. We actually closed we have a facility, a football turf facility, and we closed the facility end of February to do renovation. So we renovated the turf and added some other areas for our customers. And coming out of the renovation would have been right after Easter, and then COVID came. So we've been closed. The facility has been closed. We also coach at a number of schools, so not being able to coach at schools, not being able to coach on our Saturday morning. We have close to 200 kids on a Saturday morning. We have 20 coaches. And so since February, that has been a major challenge in responding to that. The norm for us of coaching at schools, coaching kids, having them come out in their numbers, just has not been the same. Facility being closed, and just now opening up for small group coaching and individual has been a challenge for us. But it is us looking at ourselves more as as a solution as opposed to seeing ourselves waiting for a solution. And we have a theme that we said together we win, and that's kind of what we've been building on, trying to find solutions, trying to find avenues to engage, to connect with parents, to connect with our players. So not just development, but we have our academy, we have our club, and so you have a number of different contact points that we have, and we're just trying to be innovative at this time, pivoting, changing directions, what we need to do to be able to be relevant. And I think that's the word for us, is being relevant in this time, understanding the season and being relevant.
So that's so true, Andre. And I know you touched on some point about how it has impacted ballers from an economic standpoint. One of the things when I listen to the discussions, we about getting sports back up, here in Jamaica, we talk about getting the athletes out, getting the players back on the pitch, and oftentimes we neglect to discuss the impact and the number of other persons who are connected to the industry, because when a game is played, the soup lady, the peanut man,
Right.
the vendor who is there, and they're really looking for these spectacle, these events, so that they can sell their goods, and of course being able to take care of their responsibilities. So it is even more important, given the informal nature or economy, that we get sport back out they're playing. Now here, again, I know a lot about your passion for adopting physical education and sport for special needs. Certainly, this is not a discussion around special needs, but we are in fact in very trying times. What are some, from an educational standpoint, particularly CSAS, what are some of the things that you have been through, some of the difficulties, and I know you're deeply connected with the physical education ecosystem of Jamaica. What are some of the difficulties and the challenges that people in the education sector, primarily around physical education and sport, have been faced with since the pandemic?
Okay, thank you for having me. Um, well, one of the things I know is that classes have stopped. I know physical education teachers are concerned because most of our activities involve groups. We share equipment. Our sports that we do, we tend to be marked, we tend to be close, etc. For me, what happened when COVID, before prior to COVID, we would have classes. I had practical sessions outside. Um, I had netball to be precise, and I was never thinking about sanitizing equipment, etc. We would just go play, pack up the balls, take them back into storage. However, with the onset of COVID and that sudden impact, we had to stop everything. And I had to be creative because I still had to get my students to learn the skills. I still had to complete my assessments. And I think all physical education teachers, especially those who had students preparing for CSEC, were forced in that position where we had to complete a curriculum because assessments are being done. In my case, however, we got the opportunity to do alternative assessments. And so for some persons, we could go online. For other PE teachers, that was not possible. In assessing the practical, I had to use technology. So I had to get my videos up. I had to use my WhatsApp. We had Zoom classes, etc. I had to be making video calls to get my assessment done. I had students moving tables in the house, using tiles to represent strategies and all of that. So it took some innovation, and I do believe a lot of physical education teachers, especially now, are quite concerned because CAPE is going on, and it did affect to some extent the preparation. As you did mention about adaptive PE for children with special needs, that is also going to be a challenge because in most cases, students within the class setting have to be more caring and giving to these students. And with the physical distancing concept that is going to affect how we relate and how students assist others. And so teachers will now have to be more creative again and really sit and think about the students because we do want to include them because inclusivity is what we're promoting.
I'm sure later on in the conversation, you'll come back to expound a little bit more on what are some of those creative and innovative measures that you took to ensure that you could continue with your class, and of course, that your students could benefit. Dr. Lawrence, how are you?
Hi, Andre. I am doing awesome. It's such a pleasure to be here. Thanks so much for having me.
I really had to ask how you're doing because I wanted the audience to see that energy that you come with and you bring to the table. Certainly not even COVID can dampen.
Not even COVID. The amount of quarantines I've been through, not even.
COVID, ooh. Yeah, so share with us some of that personal experience and some of the professional ones so we can kickstart the thing.
Sure. Let's talk about a little professional going to personal then.
Yeah.
We'll do it.
For
So
sure.
on arriving in Jamaica, usually I'll go home, everything will be fine. Unfortunately, I had a mishap at home and I couldn't stay at home. So I had to stay with a colleague. And at the time, COVID-19 was not heavy with us in terms of lockdown. This was February. But when COVID-19 came to Jamaica and we had lockdown, I had to stay with my colleague. And one day, one of her children came home sick. Now, as everybody else, I'm paranoid. I'm like, you have a cold, you have what you call it, coughing, what's happening here? And that was before we went out the night before, and I'm like, I don't know. So I was uncomfortable staying there. I had the opportunity to go back home, so I self-quarantined for 14 days because one, I didn't want to go back to work, expose myself to, the clients that were there, the staff that was there, so I just decided I'm staying home. So I quarantined for 2 weeks. I didn't have any symptoms or anything like that. And despite what everybody thinks, I'm a homebody, so those 2 weeks were awesome for me. And especially it felt like I had a break from, everything that was going on. And I could get other work done, especially from a distance. As it relates to the office, before coronavirus 2019, everything running smooth. When the lockdown came, it's like right in the middle. Let's talk about the athletes that we saw in the office. Right in the middle of preparing secondary students for champs. And some of these students are on contracts where the school pay for them. And right in the middle of that, the school is like, well, no champs. Well, we're not going to pay for these visits. Well, no, we're going to have to stop treating these individuals because no, they're not being prepared for champs. And trust me, some of them we have been with from September or before the school semester starts and run straight back. And to know that we're in February, right? And champs was cancelled, so that was a big thing for a lot of our athletes. And I just using champs as an example because other things were changed as well. As it relates to, do you want me to speak about like changes that we had to do in the office right now?
Not yet. We can come back to that in a little bit because I want you to just speak a little bit on the disease itself. We had a lot of talk about it, it affecting the respiratory system. What implications, does that have for, an athlete?
Okay. And so right now, it depends, right? So I'm going to tell you things throughout this whole webinar that we have going on today, just about what we know about coronavirus today, because coronavirus changes, right? As
it's different from the corona of yesterday.
And the things that we find will change as we go along. So right now we know that COVID-19 comes from the corona family. And we do know that we have 7 different types of coronavirus that affected the human population. In general, we have hundreds of them living in animals and stuff like that. So you do have right now coronavirus disease 2019. So that's the name of the disease. But the virus itself is SARS-CoV Corona 2. So it's actually a severe acute respiratory syndrome virus. So that means that it attacks the respiratory system. And that's why persons will come about, or what you're looking for is respiratory symptoms. So like coughing, sneezing, runny nose, fever, because we have the infestation of a virus occurring. And people will have, depending on the severity of the disease, you will have 1, no symptoms, 2, mild respiratory symptoms, 3, symptoms ranging to lung infiltration. So now pneumonia, lung collapse, flaring up of your asthma, your bronchitis. Now we're leading into difficulty breathing. Once you have difficulty breathing, then this is now, hospitalization, staying into the ICU unit because of the adversities of what's happening with the lung. So as stated before, persons were treating this very aggressively as it relates to our respiratory illness. And as a result of that, the transmission is by air droplets, as they say now. So that's why we have all these measures coming into play in terms of limiting that through face masks, face shields, social distancing, hand washing, not touching, stuff like that. So if it is that you are an athlete or a sporting individual or a gym goer, recreational person who went through Corona, a couple things might happen to you. If you are asymptomatic, nothing much right now, right? And the COVID-19 is pretty young, so we really don't know if asymptomatic persons will become symptomatic later, one way or another. 2, if it is that you are symptomatic as it relates to being hospitalized, then you do go through, or should go through, a rehabilitation program. So instead of going back to play, instead of going back to the gym, you will have a period of rehabilitation to get back to function. And then once you get back to function, you're now cleared to go back to the sport. And you can have carryover symptoms as it relates to the respiratory system that is going to decrease optimal performance. So it's now retraining, depending on how bad the coronavirus affected your cardiorespiratory system, for you now to go back into training. Training is going to look different for you. Can you train at all? Can you go back to the sport? So these are the persons who have been signed off to do so. And now the coaching staff has to be aware of this. Training will change, and that would have to be implemented for the person.
That's a very good point that you raised there, because my concern, having recognized that the disease affects the respiratory system, one of my concern was, what are the residual effect or compounding effect, and how would that, what implications would that have for an athlete who is involved in an endurance-based sport such as football?
Right. So, even endurance based in terms of anything. Now, one, it depends on the extent of the damage to the cardiorespiratory system, right? There are persons who won't go back. They won't go back to normal depending on how bad it was. If they had scarring of the lung tissue, if they had lung function being reduced dramatically because of changes in the structure of the lung itself. So then you won't get back that surface area to increase in your VO2 max, the increase in your perfusion rate as it relates to oxygen diffusion to the blood system. So persons might go back with a reduced level of performance based off of this. Now, once again, people, let me make this very clear. Research is now ongoing. So we do have research popping in and out. So really, I'm talking theoretical based off of, respiratory illnesses and issues that has happened before and how that has affected performance versus facts. Because I scour all the time for research, and Corona is new and research takes time. So what you'll find is case studies out there and also you have to remember that Corona is still active. So you don't have persons, and it's an infectious disease. So you don't have persons trying to do research on an active person right? You're not going to put them in a group and say, let's see how fast this spreads to the population. But what you have is case studies, and a lot of the case studies are actually being done by the researcher themselves or students who get permission to go in and say, all right, let's look at the respiratory system and how this has affected it. So there still is a lot of time to wait until we can get some concrete evidence to put guidelines and things like that in place. So it's like a touch and go situation, and we definitely have to assess the person before going back to play, before going back to sports, and these are people who have been infected and symptomatic. See where they are at, and then you train accordingly.
For sure. I remember some time ago that I was consulted when the pandemic hit of a program that players could do during the pandemic and so forth. My number one recommendation to them was that in this time, try to stay safe. We can always improve fitness.
Right.
Sure of the residual effect of this disease that will affect your cardiovascular system. So the number one priority for players is to stay away from the disease. And so you raised some critical points. I want to quickly go across to Simon. And I see you even grow new hairstyle. There's so many things that you have during this time. I see you're now a blogger. How was that experience? Did you pick up all of that in the quarantine moment?
Not in the quarantine moment. This is a revelation I had last year. So I started, of course, I've been full-time table tennis, as you know, for the last 9-10 years. So I'd always be videoing my practice, and then I kind of got into videoing everything else, and then eventually I turned it into this YouTube, Instagram, TikTok thing. So
you're creating waves, and that's a nice little segue into what I want to discuss with you, because you are a professional table tennis player. How has that impacted your earning? We have seen where one global administrator has come out and he has said his recommendation to athletes is to probably get a 9-to-5 during this period of time. Because how has it personally impacted you as a professional athlete?
It has decimated my income. Now, our major areas are North America and Europe. That's where, as table tennis players, you will look to make your money. Now, everybody can see what's going on with the States right now, so there's no chance of going back to the States. It's hard to fly to Europe, and they have very strict measures in place now when it comes to events overall. So table tennis specific events are hardly being kept. As far as I know, there's only 1 or 2 events going on in the world now. And so, I mean, it's difficult when it comes to income, which is where you get into the 9-to-5s, finding other things to do. So that's just what we have to live with now.
Yeah, that's so true. Nahil, for you, I want to touch a little bit more on, because you did raise some important points about CXCs being affected, and of course from your side as a lecturer at the University of Technology, the lockdown literally came just a few weeks before semester end, semester exams. What were some of the things that were carried out to ensure that you could have serviced your major clients, which are your students, to ensure that they were able to finish course? Just run us through some things that you did, and of course let's go a little bit now into discussing some practical hands-on tips that we can recommend to the people who are listening.
Okay, well, for us, what I had to do for my module in particular, or as a school, what we did, because we're close with our students and we have to ensure the best for them, we had online classes. We went straight online before the university established its platform. We met as a school, we had discussions, and we selected other platforms, shared what we were doing. Students had to leave Kingston, they had to go back to their areas of residence. And so that had another set of issues with it, because some of them had limited internet. So it forced us into a position where we had to have one-on-one sessions with our students to accommodate them. That was extended teaching hours for us. We had to change from just having PowerPoint presentations to sending notes. So we had to rewrite, we had to revamp. We had exams for some of the theory components that were set for scheduled exams in a center. We had to change that to online to accommodate the students. We had to arrange for the exams not to just be scheduled within a 2-hour frame, but we had to give a time block to accommodate students who would have challenges at certain times. As it relates to the practical, I know lecturers had to do one-on-one video sessions to complete assessments. And as I said, for my students, I had to be so strategic. I had to write extra questions so to ensure that quality assurance was maintained as an institution. And a question was not repeated because I was doing video calls. So when I was finished with a student, I did not know if that student would send their question to somebody else. So I had to prepare adequate questions to ensure none was repeated. I had to try tricks and trades. So I would just randomly call and I would give a time frame. So I say all students log on now. And when everybody is there, I randomly select who I would call so they didn't know to call somebody else to say you're next, etc. We had a lot of tricks and trades to it. As I said, my students were also very responsive, very creative. They would share their ideas with me beforehand. And of course, being the lecturer I am, I'm not going to tell them yes or no because I train them well. So I would say to them, you run through it and see if it can work. And when I called them on the day, I remembered one of my students, she had tiles with her strategy drawn on the tiles, demonstrating what her strategy would be on the court. So the court was drawn out and her strategy was there. And I think it also um, forced my students to be innovative and it showed me another side of them that they were also willing to work with us and go the extra mile. I saw students working with family members. So family members became videographers because when they were demonstrating the technique, they had family members holding the cameras. I saw furniture moving around in houses to create spaces. But it was a good experience. And I think it proved that we are dedicated and that physical education teachers are supernatural people, honestly, because to get that, I mean, it was different. There's no other word to use but different. It was out of the really outside of the norm. I have never had that experience, and I am seeing it now where I am a K professor, and whilst the CXC practicals were eliminated from this year, K practicals continue. And having visited quite a number of schools, I see where teachers have gone the extra mile and they explain what they have done. Hours of night, checking emails, using WhatsApp to get to students. I remembered one of my colleagues in the height of COVID. Luckily, he was not under quarantine. He was in Stony Hill. He teaches in Kingston, and he was in Stony Hill visiting a student to ensure that the SBA was done. And so I think it is not a lot of persons probably did not realize how far and how hard we work as physical education teachers. But with all the creativity that we had to put in and come up, because it's different for different persons. Some people, I had to have students make a ball because they did not have a ball at home. But then you have to show me the passes. And so they had to be innovative too. So I do believe I do have a lot of recommendations, which I'm going to hold off just until
Yes,
because I'm
please
going to
do.
be giving recommendations according to circumstances at different levels. But
Please
yes,
do. Please hold on to the recommendations because we're coming to that in the final segment of the webinar. I want to touch with Andre a little bit before we get to that, those tips. I saw Simon laughing during your presentation, and I could just read on his face. He's like, Miss Brown is still up to her tricks.
I would try to find every way around it, every way possible. But it's a good thing I graduated when I did.
Yeah, so certainly, Audrey. So up to now, I don't want to touch on what is to come because I visited Ballers yesterday, and I don't want you to touch on what's there now. We're gonna leave that for the third segment because that looks like that's the reset. That's a new mode that you're in to launch from here.
Right.
But I want you to touch on up to now from that March when the lockdown started. What were some of the things that you immediately put in place to keep the doors of Ballers open?
Yeah, so we have two different target groups, or coaches, or themselves, and the players that we coach on a regular basis. And we were in that mode where we were sitting down waiting, wanting to figure out what is to come. And I remember we met with our coaches and we're like, we have two choices. We're either going to be part of the solution, or we're going to sit down and wait for someone to solve it for us. We pride ourselves in being heavily involved in youth development and pioneering and stepping forth. So with that mindset, we started to say, look, because of the uncertainty, we're going to have to retool, we're going to have to do some things differently. So we started as an opportunity first for us to look at ourselves, where we are as coaches, what we need to be doing, and use the opportunity to really build on ourselves, to strengthen the capacity to improve on certain things that we have been always talking about, but the main question is we're too busy or we just don't have the time. And so we really got the opportunity to start. So I brought the coaches onto Zoom, brought those all who did not understand Zoom, talking to them about the etiquette of being online, how important it is, and the intentions of where we wanted to go. Then we started to talk about collaborating and networking, because everybody, sometimes you face a problem, but it's only in Jamaica, not in the US, not in Europe, but everybody was facing the same thing. So as we spoke with different colleagues and different friends of ours, they were faced with the same dilemma that we were faced in. And we're like, all right, what are we going to do? So we started to share. We started to share webinars. We started to share best practices. We started to invite them on our platform. We go on their platform, and that whole thing opened up such discussion about seeing how the problems that exist, that we could find a way around it. And that took us to virtual coaching. What you're going to do, how you're going to do that. So we do have some of the challenges that I heard some of my guests speak about in terms of internet use, access to the internet, and so forth. But we first had to say, I know those challenges exist, but we're going to do it. So we did virtual, and then we started doing small group. But I think the main thing out of that season was an acknowledgement of a recognition and acknowledgement that we can't just remain here. We still have to be active. We still have to find a way to be solution oriented. And so we took the opportunity to speak to our players. We took the opportunity to speak to parents. So who are we? What are we about? Where our plans are? What is it that we want to do? Because we didn't have the platform before. We didn't use Zoom the way we're using it now. We had to call people to a meeting. They couldn't come to the meetings because they were busy at work. But here now we had a Zoom meeting where all the parents came on, and I was able to have the coaches introduce themselves. So it just allowed for us to do some things that we did not do before. And it provided a connecting point with our parents. It provided our coaches to step up a little bit more, those who are a little shy in talking and in public speaking and so on. And so those were the things that for us positioned us then through a rough time or a challenging time. Also saying to the coaches that, look, you're going to go out and try and hustle and look at work. But what we wanted to make sure that they understood is that they had an opportunity to develop themselves. They have an opportunity to be very vulnerable, just as a small group, vulnerable to identify where their weaknesses were, identify what were the areas that they could improve on. Because of the uncertainty of the government and when things were going to open up, we had that little window of time. I think it was like 4 or 5 weeks where everything was just locked down. And we said, let us take the advantage. No, when some people are sleeping, we need to be working. When some people are trying to just wait till the answer, we need to come up with answers. And I think that was for us the greatest thing that we're able to do with our coaches, because they didn't know anything but coaching. We've been doing this for how many years? So I think for us as the coaches, we were able to take that moment there and say, look, it's not the money that we're used to, it's not the coaching environment we're used to, but we're going to definitely equip ourselves and build capacity as an organization so that when it opens up or when things go, we'll be ready for it.
Yep. I know the head of school, Dr. Winter Adams, in her opening remarks, she says that on the other side of crisis, unity, so everything is a matter of perspective and how you choose to look at it. I'm seeing here where people have literally not roll over and play dead, and they have taken advantage of the downtime. I see Simon and myself, we have 2 different hairstyles now. I certainly learned some new skills, but in my professional life, even during this time, we took advantage of the opportunities that exist. We launched the CONCACAF e-learning academy, and that was an initiative that we had been thinking about for some time. But then when COVID hit and we couldn't be traveling, we could not be having those face-to-face interactions with the people that we work with, then we had to quickly accelerate and, of course, execute on that project. So again, it's how you choose to look at this time. I'm going to ask the people in YouTube land, please feel free if you have any question for any of the members of our panel, to please just write it in the chat, and of course we will read those questions to them and have them answer. Please feel free to do so.
Andre.
Sure, Andre.
Yeah, and I think it would be good to kind of connect on your point that you just made.
Sure.
I am a part I am a coach educator for CONCACAF, and
Right.
so the part that you made about CONCACAF taking the lead and going out and doing e-learning and so on, I benefited tremendously from that exposure as someone, and as I benefited from that experience, I was able to take that same knowledge and experience and pass it on to my coaches as I shared what I was doing. So just to kind of reinforce the benefits of collaborating, of networking, even although we did not know where the e-learning was going to go, we didn't know the impact it was going to have. You were not doing it thinking about me and about ballers or about other coaches who benefited from it, but I definitely learned so much from other presenters who were from the US, from Europe, from other Caribbean islands who had experiences in doing different things, and just being able to come into this platform and learn from each other, we're able to take that in our local setting and provide value to someone else. So I just wanted to reinforce that benefit trickled all the way down to another entity who was able to do something else, and we benefited from that.
Yeah, that for us is truly where the success lies in all the program that we do as an organization. The ability for the people that we are in direct contact with to run with it and to produce a multiplying effect. So much so that I am looking forward each week to the Ballers Facebook Live or Instagram Live now. So those people are on YouTube, you can check out Andre on his page. Weekly, they have a webinar that's open. He's doing fantastic. So we're at this point now, Laurie, where we know that we don't know. So that's the reality. So we're at this point now where we know that we don't know, because we don't know when this COVID thing is going to end.
We do not know
if it will ever end. But guess what? Sport has to continue again, because we spoke about not just the athletes, and Simon told us about how that has impacted him negatively from a financial perspective, but the healthcare workers that are attached to it, the coaches, the lady selling the soup, the peanut. So sport has to continue. We have to find a way, because people are depending on it, not just from a financial standpoint, social, and of course from a health perspective. In this new norm, talk to us a little bit now about, some recommendations, to keep us healthy, to keep us safe during these times as we return to kicking the ball and to running the 100-meter and knocking the ball, all that.
This is what I can say, especially listening to Andre speak and everything. My number one thing would be that the governing bodies for the sporting industry and organizations for like gym facilities and stuff like that need to come up with guidelines, need to come up with policies. So that's number one on my thing, right? Because each sport is different. Let's use some examples, and let's use examples on physical therapy too. Because when this occurred, physical therapy, we are essential workers. So we didn't have the opportunity of closing offices. Yes, clients reduced and everything like that. But for the guys that needed physical therapy, they'd come in and we still do our safety measures to treat them. In the same breath, the World Physical Therapy Organization came together with the WHO and put together guidelines for physical therapists with COVID-19 and how we should rehabilitate clients, right? Protocols in terms of safety, all of that. It's just for your country to have it adapted to the environment that we live in. I work with the Rugby Football Union here, and World Rugby, awesome. Sometimes I can't stop talking about them sometimes. And I'm not plugging them too much. I'm going to just use them as an example.
Plug them a little bit.
World Rugby would have their player welfare. And if you go on the website, the guidelines are extensive and outlined as it relates to what you should do in terms of club level, the different phases that they have, what they recommend, and all you have to do is take that material so the Jamaica Rugby Football Union here can have it tweak it to our atmosphere, and then disseminate it to everybody. So that is my first recommendation. So if JFF don't have that, they should have that already in play. If J3A don't have that, they should have that already in play. There's a new athletic association. What's it called? Athletic Association? I think that's it.
The Administrative Athletic Association.
Right? They should already start to implement policies, because for the different sporting discipline, we need standard across the board. We don't need this club doing this, another club doing something else, and it's not standardized. So I think the governing bodies need to come together, put the policies in place, and then trickle them down to everybody. So that's my first thing, right? My second thing is I'm big on education. So we need to educate the people. So the education has to stem from educating the coaches, educating the athletes, educating the gym owners, educating the patrons that's coming in about what this disease is, what it is as we know it to be, because some people you think know, some people not following what's happening, you know, right? They do not know. Sometimes I walk on the streets and I say, a taxi full of 10 people and not going on. And I'm exaggerating. So I'm just saying that to say athletes too sometimes need educating. And I would even go as far as implementing, before they return to training, before you go back into the gym, have something online for them to do, like a little course, and get a certificate at the end of it. And then before they come to training, they present the certificate to be like, I'm on the same page as everybody else is. So let's start back training. So I don't know how that would look. I'm just giving that as an example, but I think educating everybody is key for them to be aware and to know what is happening. So that's my input in terms of recommendation where that is concerned. Then I think we should look at the facilities, right? So the training facility versus going back to the gym. Because one, it is preferred to do everything outdoors. That is no ifs, ands, or buts about it. If you're going back to exercising, if you're going back to training, it's preferred to do it outdoors. So if you usually, I used to say, Simon in the auditorium, killing it, right? And if that is what you used to do, then the coaches now need to look at moving this outdoors, because one, it's not an enclosed space, right? And if it is that the virus is going to be transmitted through air droplets and through speaking, then it's good to have an open atmosphere so you have more ventilation, right? More movement and less likelihood of having transmission occur. So one, you need to look at your facility, what it was and what it needs to be as it relates to the new measures coming into play. Two, you need to look at how you're going to be screening people to come in, right? So this screening, do you need a section for it? And what does this screening now going to entail? And the frequency of it, is it going to be every day, right? Because you need some information that you need to know from people every day. Or is it going to be once a week? What is it going to look like? Then usually I've watched training and in terms of sports, and I don't see no cleaning lady about the place a lot, right? So now you're going to look at your staffing as it relates to cleaning stuff. What do we need to clean? What people touching a lot? And when it comes to the facility itself, sometimes the cleaning staff will come in the morning, maybe in the afternoon when the gym closed, and then in the evening. Now you do have gyms opening up and saying, all right, that can work. So the cleaning staff is going to be there straight throughout the day. And I'm going to be cleaning in blocks, right? Because not only do I have persons wiping down the equipment before they're using it, but you do have persons who are professionals coming in and cleaning in blocks, cleaning everything. And for equipments that are hard to clean, you are going to think, do I need to get rid of this and let people bring it in? Meaning things like foam rollers and yoga blocks that will have the sweat and things seep down into it. You can't wipe outside till you're blue, right? Your perspiration, everything is now embedded in that. So now do I need to look at equipment that's going to be hard to clean and restrict them from using it? Also, space. What are you going to be restricting? Do I need to have showers and locker room open because now this is a further enclosed environment with humidity, hot air, and people breathing in and out? Do I need to close those and just have access to the bathroom alone? Do I have a water cooler? No, I need to stop using that. Yes? And then let's talk about facility in terms of the equipment that is inside. How far apart am I going to put my equipment, right? Does it need to be 6 feet? Or because I'm at a gym, I'm going to be perspiring, I'm going to be expelling air. Do I need to go 12 feet apart? Like, how am I going to structure this training facility and structure the gym? Okay. And also, if it is that gyms have like outdoor space, it's going to be good to look into expanding these outdoor spaces so that persons are, equipped to doing more things outdoors with smaller groups versus indoors. And if that can't happen, then we need to revisit the ventilation system. What type of air conditioning unit am I using? How often am I cleaning this? Is it providing adequate ventilation in terms of cycling the air, filtering the air, and make it safe for the persons that come in? Because a lot of time I open up gyms and I can smell, everything. Oh man, hit you.
From yesterday, last week.
Right? So now do I need to look into opening up doors, opening up windows, have industrial fans so that the air can move and circulate? So we need to look into things like that. And as it relates to what we're going to start back with, so this is not a facility, everything going to go into phases. So when you return into sport, you're going to return in phases. And then you're going to look at your government and see what they're saying and doing as well. So returning mean you have non-contact. Awesome. So you start with small groups, you stagger the time, and then maybe eventually, once the government's all right, 100 people can gather, maybe you can do contact now, then we can look into something like football, something like rugby, something like basketball. Am I going to spend the first portion of this doing non-contact things, right, at a distance? And then once things start to ease, I start to go into now, being able to touch that person and guard them, right? Type of vibe. If it's track and field, so that you have a team that is like 100-man team. Why not split the team 50-50? Why not look into different locations to have training occur? So instead of it just being one, let's look at UTECH. You can do UTECH on the field, or they can go to the stadium, right? So you split them and have the training session at the same time. Or you split them due to the sport itself, whether we're going to be looking at long jumpers, high jumpers, throwers, sprinters, endurance, you split them up. If you have 50 and you have a whole track, then let's break that down into groups of 10. And say 10 all the way over there, sir. 10 all the way over there, sir. 10 all the way over there, sir. Right? So that's now looking into splitting persons and modifying the training program, because you can't go back. It's not going to be the same. You're not going to be having your meetings going on repeatedly in terms of group meeting, coaching meetings. All of those things are going to be done virtually. Sometimes you have coaching staff and people that not necessarily necessary at training events, then you're going to X them from being there, right? You're going to anybody unnecessary, let's not have it. You used to do carpooling, we're not doing that anymore. Persons when come in, we used to cheer them on, hug them, high five them, all of that. Not that you're not giving moral support, but we're not doing that anymore. That's because of the times and what's happening as it relates to transmitting the virus. Let me say this one thing and break. You can maybe cut me because I'm going on for long, because we have whole heap of recommendations. Right now, well, as at yesterday, how many people have the virus? 768, I believe. And out of that 768, 678 were recovered cases and 10 persons died. So that means we have 80 people out there with the virus. Chances are quarantine, I think one person in the hospital or something. We have tested 29,000 plus people. Jamaica population is 2.9. So if you do the math, that's like 1% of the population that we have tested, right? And we test today, and we don't really know what can happen to them by next week. But if we tested 1%, what happened to the other 99%? Right? And what happened to, I tell my staff, when people come in, treat them like them have it. That's all you have to do, treat them like them have it. Because right now, we don't know. Sometimes people come out and the game can change. Look at when that hiccup happened with World Health Organization saying asymptomatic people maybe rarely transmit the disease. Like, that's a game changer. Because now we're just looking at people who is sick, right? And be able to, because you can see the symptoms and know, but they had to retract that statement and say, no, that's not what I meant, right? It's just that we don't know the cases. We can't test the cases as it relates to who asymptomatic and how they spread it. So I just say all of that to say, when we're returning to sport, we have to treat it, it's not just another day. I see running group posting group pictures at the end of the run and saying, you know, we did it. Like that should be no more. If we're talking about Corona as it presents today and how it's spread, we don't need to gather together at the end of a run and be like, let's hug and take this picture. So we have to take those things into consideration. I don't know if you want me to break or continue with any recommendations as I have.
We're gonna come back to you, Doc, because you're hitting the ball good down the line there, you know, drive.
Yeah, because I don't start talk about mask and no mask and fish and them something there.
And let me say this to you since you brought up the topic, because that's one of the questions that we have in the chat, and we're going to talk to that. Let's just deal with it now since you raised it, the issue about mask. There's a question in the chat. What's your recommendation on the mask?
Mask. Oh gosh, masks are the death of me. This is now my personal input because I have tried.
Seems like you have been waiting for this moment.
What? I have tried exercising with mask, and it is, for me personally, it's very restrictive. It gives me symptoms now of claustrophobia, not being able to breathe properly, start even to feel like I'm going to get lightheaded, and I just have to pull it down and breathe. The good thing is that
that's personal experience. That's not something that you read in a book.
This is personal experience.
Perfect.
So let's talk about things that people have been saying, because once again, Corona is new, so that a lot of research as it relates to persons wearing these types of masks, and we're not talking about endurance training masks or anything like that. Persons wearing these types of masks and the effects that it can have, I haven't seen anything real solid and concrete or a lot of it yet. So give it some time and it will come out. But what I have seen is this. So one, World Health Organization done say from the get-go, do not wear masks while exercising, right? Because it decreases the ability to breathe properly, and the mask can get wet and increase further difficulty of breathing, and also increase microorganisms that you have, right? So you have and this is for cloth mask. So you have the cloth mask, wet, in terms of transmitting the virus, no increase. Now you're going to start muffling with it, and it's going to increase the difficulty of breathing, and that's going to hinder and hamper your performance at the end of the day, regardless if it's recreational or not. So World Health Organization stands by that decision, right? But other experts too have come up and said, boy, the mask, if placed properly and concealed, one, it can cause hyperventilation. This is now, as I said, theorized-ish. It can cause hyperventilation because of the increase in carbon dioxide that's being emitted and recirculating in the system. So now you're rebreathing more carbon dioxide, you're breathing less oxygen, and you're going to have a hyperventilation system happening. Your heart rate can increase, and if you do hyperventilate too much, then that can lead to like decrease in brain function. You get a little bit confused. Worst case scenario, you faint, you lose some consciousness, right? With the mask also, experts has said that it can lead to dehydration, and that can give you that lightheaded dizziness feeling that you're having, and that can also,
you experienced.
that can also possibly be due to slight symptoms of like altitude training, because you know when you're training up high, the oxygen level is lower there, the partial pressure of oxygen is lower, so then the effects of like altitude sickness might come on initially. They're saying it's not going to be as bad as if you are at high altitudes, but sometimes the mask can mimic that. So once it is that you find persons having those symptoms, no, this is my recommendation, because you have persons who exercise with mask and nothing. They have the proper mask, it's not wet, they breathe properly, they're not having any adverse effects. So they prefer to do it because of course it's going to eliminate the spread of the disease. So if it is that it's on an individual basis, I believe. So if it is that you find you're not having these symptoms and you want to exercise like this, then go ahead and do so. But there are a lot of research in terms of experts saying that, look here, this might be something that's going to cause hazard to your health, you need to look into it. Some persons have, even on the flip side, the persons that say exercise in mask, if you're comfortable and there's no breathing difficulty, states that even if you feel this way, just continue to wear the mask a little bit more and you'll be acclimatized to this. And really and truly, I wouldn't be an advocate for that. And as I said, I don't know the long-term effects. Some people say that that can even later on increase performance in terms of the endurance people, if it is that they're wearing it for an extended period of time. But I have seen, even from the British Journal of Sports Medicine, I have it up right here. So they speak about, and this was in June, about viral transmission as it relates to asymptomatic and pre-symptomatic persons and reducing the risk of aerolization with it. So why not wear it, right? They speak about not wearing the N95 mask and stuff like that. So now we're looking at masks that's appropriate for exercise. So we're looking at the material of the mask, the layering of the mask, and the effect of the mask on the person themselves. So we're looking for masks that is not going to trap moisture, so it won't get wet easily. There is a give and take, right? Because if the mask is airtight, then of course you're not going to be able to breathe properly, right, through it, and that's going to be difficulty. So then you're still going to have like air coming out through the sides, and that's like a give or a take. Do I want to just have nothing at all, or too tight, or enough to just let me be comfortable to do this activity that I want to do? You're going to say something, Andre?
Yeah, perfect. Because I was thinking, and I think that's an excellent point that we need to ensure that we bring clarity to, that what you were referring to in the beginning of your explanation about the usage of the mask. We are referring to those typical masks that somebody take up some cotton and take up some polyester and take up some the everyday masks that people are wearing around. We're not referring to those.
Cloth masks.
Right.
Maybe the disposable surgical masks, paper masks,
right.
Those especially.
Yes,
because
we're not making reference to those masks.
Is a hot mess to exercise it. The disposable surgical too, and the cloth mask that's going around, because right now everybody turned mask experts, right?
Exactly. So we're not making reference to those masks that are now being made by the sports goods manufacturers that are being made specifically for.
So no, right. So I was going to segue and say that you do have masks that's, of course, the industry is going to capitalize on this because they want persons to go back into sports, and as Simon said, you have to find another way to make some income. So you do have sporting apparels and even non-sporting that's trying to make masks more. Someone showed me one last night. It came out of Canada. Like it said, Curve O2. So they're really trying to have breathing regulated, right? So they're trying to have your breathing regulated through this, the filtering system, the non-wet system, and you can be able to exercise comfortable with it. I don't think they have found, because I've tried, I have like over a dozen masks, and I've tried many of them, and I don't think we hit the nail on the head yet, but these masks that's coming out slowly but surely, and they cost a little bit more, like $60 $80. Those have promising future, because now they're looking at, instead of just coverage in terms of your respiration, how is that going to be affected when you go ahead and increase your activity through exercise?
Seems like they're gonna have to attach a tank, oxygen tank, and put it on your back for you to be comfortable.
They do have one that has a pouch on the hip that gives you oxygen. So
there you go.
The decrease in oxygen that's felt through the recirculated air is not that much. They actually do have one of that right now.
Because I was just thinking, maybe I need to come down to CSAS and have a conversation with Dr. Winter Adams. Maybe we can put something together at the University of Technology and capitalize a little bit on everything that's happening there. That's next level thinking, isn't it?
Hey.
So I want to, just on the mask, and I want to move to Nahil shortly. I remember being consulted again about the wearing of masks in football. And what I said to the person, so that they could easily understand, I said, asking a player to play football in a mask is like telling him to go every day and play in the Azteca Stadium in Mexico. And that pretty much put a rest to put the conversation at rest, because they definitely understood the difficulty, challenges that we would pose, in terms of requiring players to wear masks. It's really challenging, and you don't want to do that without having medical support on the ground, because we have had some stories playing in Mexico. So I want to go quickly to Nahil.
And
So,
just to say that too, sorry, Nahil.
Sure.
The players have to be responsible, as it relates to because right now it's not like you're a Barcelona player. It's not like we can test you before coming in. We know that you are COVID free. We can put you in a camp like the NBA people, isolate you, test you frequently. You are coming, your ballers are coming in, and they have to be responsible for what they do. They have to be responsible to be like, all right, I can't go that session that's happening under the down low, right? I can't be doing these things because I am going to be interacting with other persons doing training, and I'm responsible for myself and I'm responsible for the other people as well. So because you're not going to be doing another added safety measure as it relates to wearing the mask while training, they have to be mindful of how responsible they are for themselves and others. Sorry.
I totally agree, which is where the education comes in too. And the fact that we're now seeing these major leagues being played, and we're seeing players doing exactly what you are saying that they're not to do. When they score a goal, people are still jumping on each other. And that in and of itself gives a false sense of security to us in these places like Jamaica, not understanding what is behind all of that, that players are tested, they are held in isolation, and pretty much what they refer to as a bubble. And we don't have the resources to do that. So Nahil, I have a question from the chat, which was also on our list of questions for you. What are the key recommendations for physical education teachers and coaches to be effective in light of the limited interactions precipitated by COVID-19?
Okay, so one of the first things that I say is we have to plan. And I hope my head of school is not listening to me right now, but my head of school has had us planning since April, May, thereabout, for the upcoming academic year.
I'm sure she's happy that you're saying that, because the dean is also on the thing. So I think that's really good.
He has had us planning.
And leadership there, bud.
But one of the things though is that we have to plan. PE teachers will now have to go into that equipment room, and we have to do inventory. We have to check what it is that we have. We have to, once we know, I'm thinking that Dr. Lawrence had a discussion with me in my sleep last night, because a lot of her thoughts are just along my thoughts. We have to educate our students. We have to set policies. We have to set policies for staff, policies for students, and policies as it relates to equipment and resources. We know that children are going to be using changing facilities. How often are these areas going to be cleaned? What are we going to do? How many students? Because we know that some of these teachers are dealing with groups of 45. So I would suggest to PE teachers that you have to sit with your administrators and you have to have a discussion. It may mean that a PE class, a group that is going to physical education, that group may need to be split. And you may have some going to another practical subject area. So let's say foods, for example. So you have a class of 45, maybe 20 goes to food, 25 goes to physical education class. You need to sit with your administrator, because resources will affect what you do and the numbers that we can accommodate in one session. As I said, we have to establish COVID-19 preventative methods. And this is something that you will have to teach the student, because this is now going to be a new norm. So when the students come, everybody will probably normally rush into the changing room. Maybe now that will have to be different. I I had an experience the other day where I was assessing some Cape students, and it is the norm for them to share water bottles. And I said to them, ensure you have your rehydration fluids. And when I went, they had one water bottle, and there were 5 of them. So you can just imagine we had to be reminding them that there's a new norm and that cannot happen anymore. So teachers will now have to reinforce in students to take their own rehydration fluids. You don't want them running to the tap, because everybody will be touching the same tap, drinking out of the hands and so on. We have to recommend that, I would recommend that teachers, we also have to protect ourselves. So we're looking at probably wearing face shields, you have to get your own equipment. I know Dr. Lawrence will speak a little to the face shield, but I am against the mask too. And I would recommend that as teachers, we use the face shield. We have to consistently be communicating with our students. And so we have to at least protect ourselves as well as protect them. And the face shield will be a barrier for us expelling as well as for us receiving or when the students speak to us. We also have to change because I know the curriculum, the NSC curriculum, it has certain sports at certain times. And one of the things I'm sure is that football and netball comes up in the first semester. And we have to change that. We have to change the way we taught skills. We're accustomed to teaching passes, one student passing to another student. We may now have to use a hard surface and have the students pass to that hard surface and receive the ball. We have to be creative. We may also have to move away from teaching sporting skills because sports skills require certain resources. We may have to look at teaching components of fitness, looking at different healthy lifestyle practices and just doing exercises. We will have to revisit our assessments because instead of assessing sports skills, we may now have to teach our students how to test the pulse, how to come up with activities that will improve certain aspects of fitness, etc. Um, I also recommend that maybe we have to look at team teaching because there is going to be need for increased supervision of the students. So whilst one teacher, if we're going to look at changing class sizes, it may now be that you're going to have a teacher and have an assistant who will help in monitoring the students. I have suggestions here where we have to probably go back to even minor games, where you are developing certain skills through minor games using less resources, where students have to share equipment, etc. Um, Try using activity trails and exercise spots. For those who are not familiar with this, the activity trail would be probably you have a netball court and you have different activities along the court that are spaced. So students will rotate and move around and they do their different activities. So you can control the area that they are in and ensure that they're not too close. It will take a lot of planning because teachers will have to go and prepare these stuff. I know exercise spots are sold, but in some of our cases, they have to be created. The exercise spots are simply mats that are placed on the ground that has diagrams and instructions as it relates to the exercises that are to be done. Teachers may also
We can use cartridge paper and design those things, man.
of course, and you use the clear tape and you laminate it because these are stuff
Exactly.
that you reuse. So you put it in plastic bags and seal them, and then you put tape on it and stick it on the ground. These
Or
are
what
things.
Andre is doing now, we could probably do it online, like through a Zoom, so the children come
Well, I
and
do
all
have
that stuff
where
too.
you can create your physical ed. The PE department can have a YouTube channel, and
Yeah.
you can use that because we are also thinking that in some cases students may not be at school every day, and I know that some students have not done physical education since the lockdown, and we have to keep them active. So
Nahil,
the apps that you can use on your gadgets, almost all our students have cell phones, and there are apps that you can use that
Nahil,
can, yeah.
you touched on an important point, and sorry to cut into your speaking. But you touched on an important point, but you went over it very, very, very quickly. But I want you to go back to it a little bit because this may require some lobbying, it may require some changes. But I think therein lies the answer to many of the issues that we will face in physical education class. You spoke about the issue of changes to the curriculum regarding the type of sport that are played or that is played. So we know that we have collective team sports, we have individual sport. Just expound a little bit on that to see what impact that would have on us being able to deliver.
Okay, one of the challenges, Andre, is that a lot of schools invest in resources for the sport that they compete in externally. So you will find that schools will have a lot of netballs and they will have a lot of footballs. But then most schools probably don't have a tennis racket or they don't teach badminton or even simply movement activities, movement exercises. A lot of teachers do not do. Physical education teachers are trained to teach movement, but we don't. And so we find we the curriculum also, because I'm familiar with the curriculum at that level, facilitates that students, teachers are teaching the sport at the time of competition. So you will find that in September, it's normally the ISA netball and football competition. And so at secondary school, those are the sports that are normally taught at that time. You'll find that in January, it's track and field season. And so in the curriculum, you're going to find track and field. At this time, it may mean that, as I said, you're going to be submitting for budgets and so on. You may just have to submit equipment for other sports and introduce other sporting skills to students. It may mean that you have to move track and field over into the first semester where you can teach the stats, you can teach running. You may probably have to change from handing over a baton to when the person reach in close proximity just to say reach and the other one moves out. I think we have to, as physical education teacher, it may mean using minor games to get certain skills done. You want to teach running around a curve, you're going to probably have to use a game where they have to run around a hula hoop or something. I don't know. But it's for teachers. You may have to create um create scenarios or create that space you make, because I know of schools that don't have a field, for example, but yet still they would probably normally use the stadium. What are we gonna do now? Are we gonna say we cannot go because we cannot get access to Stadium East? No, you're going to have to be creative and you're going to have to use tape and tape that track outside and have your students do the activities. So it is for teachers to really sit down and look. And some of the times we do have resources that we can use in other ways. So even though it is a hula hoop that is made that we would normally use to do X, you probably will have to use that hoop to do something else now. I was thinking this morning that even the stations, normally we would use cones, and you have limited cones and you have students out there. You have the hula hoops that would normally be in the equipment room. You may need to take the hula hoops out and give instructions. When you're in the hoop, you do squats. When you're by the cones, you do jumps, etc. So we just have to sit down as PE teachers and be creative and come up with ideas. Another idea too is that you may have to write multiple lesson plans based on your resources that you have. So we're accustomed to writing one lesson plan per week. You may now have to write 4 lesson plans and divide based on space. So you have one set, you have 5 balls, so you have 5 students over that side doing passes. You have 5 students there doing dodging. You have 5 students over there doing landing and pivoting. And then you rotate the students. So if you did passes this week, next week you move on to landing, and the next week. So when you plan for one week, those objectives will last for 4 weeks until all the students would have covered all the content area, and you move on and you plan for another 4 objectives, etc. So teachers just have to be creative, and as I say, we have to get to planning, because the basis of this being successful and for us keeping our sport alive. And while students may not be going out and competing, they would have been, if we are to continue and maintain certain capacities or components of fitness that we would have developed in the past, as physical education teachers, we have to ensure that they remain active. And we also, because this COVID-19, we're talking about the respiratory system and all of that, we have to look at a healthy human being, and it affects us in different ways, psychologically, mentally, and we all know the benefits of physical activity. And as I would say, these students, a lot of them have been home since March doing nothing. And we know that physical education is normally that environment in which they come and they release a little bit of that energy, and we engage them and give them that fun component of learning. And so we have to guarantee, and even if it is online classes, we have to guarantee that we create something for them online. I even have the suggestion where some of the classes may just be aerobics and we have them dancing. So teachers need to get speakers for the PE department, put it out on the court. Some of your instructions you can even record it, so you the teacher do less talking and less shouting and less saliva passing around and all of that. So there are lots of things that we can do. We just have to be innovative, and as I said, we just have to plan and think through carefully. I know our circumstances will be different based on institution, but we can come up with ideas. We have cardboards, we have cartridge paper, we have typing sheets, we have markers, we have tapes. We can get it done.
So one of the things too, and I must say, I think any university, its job is to really answer questions that the nation has. And that means, meeting the needs and providing solutions. So far, I think UTECH has done a very good job. Where sport is concerned and this pandemic, this is evidenced by what we are doing here in this webinar and disseminating information. Again, I want to share a challenge to you and to UTECH to go a little bit further, maybe a manual, maybe a handbook, something, just outlining some steps and procedures and things that can be done so that, our physical education teachers and coaches can benefit from these that you have expressed just now, because in fact, they are really good ideas to explore. Andre.
Yes, sir.
I came by Ballers yesterday because, we connect and, I wanted to see what was happening in that Ballers too. I don't want to talk about your business. I want you to talk because I see you, I can see you're setting up for the new norm. So it's not just talk from you, because I know a lot of people talk and it look pretty. See it myself. What's next for Ballers? How are you preparing yourself to move forward given this new norm?
Yeah, good discussion so far, I must say. I before I give you my new thing, I just want to put something out into the space. I know each individual sport has their nuances, and I think we are planning and organizing very independent, and the expertise within the particular area is not. So, for example, I'm in football, and I'm doing a lot of things relating to football and trying to, get football back up and going. And so I might have something that is constrictive for me, whether it's a mask. So I went ahead and did the Shields maybe 6 weeks ago, started working with Shields as a coach. Parents said that not going to work, doctors said that not going to work, and I said, well, nobody has told me what is going to work, and I can't sit down and not do anything. But the point is, as a coach, going in there, and I see a number of the discussions in the chat, because in different forums, you hear that the mask can work, it shouldn't work, you must use that, you mustn't use a shield. So I'm just recommending that when we're having conversations, to find a way, because for the persons who are not able to be in a UTECH forum like this, or to be on an ISA call or whatever, they are just waiting for the answers, and they get one thing from our webinar and said, oh, I heard experts talk about wearing a shield, and they will run with it. They're not going to do no research. They're just going to say, they said it, I'm going to follow it. And you hear ISA said that they need to do this, they say they're going to follow it. And it kind of sends a little, different messaging out there. So yes, individual sports. So from the refereeing, blowing the whistle, to the coach coaching, so many things. So let me talk about from my end. Because of the uncertainty of it, my positioning as a coach is critical. So I did the physical and social distancing. I put them into their grids and to their different areas that they have to coach within. They are to bring their refillable water bottles and with their own water. And they must put it in their area that they are going to be training in. And then for me, where I position myself as a coach, or our coaches, is in a way where we can see and we can communicate, but we're not close to them. And so even although I have on the mask or the shield, it's really what's comfortable for us to be able to give the information, but not in the space of the player. We're not even within 6 feet of the player. We're very far away from the player, but we're still giving out instructions. The new normal or going forward is taking advantage of the technology, taking advantage of the connection with our players. So we are sending out by video, or by a video that we watch on YouTube, or something that we created ourselves, and said, this is what we're going to be working on tomorrow, to help the understanding before. So the instruction time might be a little different. So where you're spending most of the time before the session explaining what you want them to do, we send it to them via. So whether that is by a YouTube, or it's even a Word document, or some way of connecting with them before, and trying to get the parents also and the coaches also involved in that process. I think that has been beneficial for us. The going forward is really understanding. As a football coach, we would love the opportunity where we're coaching smaller numbers than the 30 kids or the 20 kids every time. That's always been a challenge for us with limited resources, limited space and time. But what we've been able to do now is because we can only coach in small groups, we really are taking advantage of that and really saying to the kid, I don't know when the tournament or the competition is going to be, but one thing we're saying to you is that you have to be ready. And how are we going to get you ready is by ensuring that the technical side of your game is important, but we're now also giving them problems to solve. We're putting mannequins or putting sticks in the ground or putting cones as defenders and saying, this is what you're going to be doing in a football environment. It's just not a real defender. And then asking them questions to check for understanding, asking them to put them in situations that they are going to be tested in it. And as coaches, we see them thinking, we see them struggling and learning in that process. And for us, that is so great because I know we don't have the game to play yet, but right now, this is what we have. And we're saying, let's make the most of what we have right now. I know I'm talking specific to football, but I mean, it is an area that I'm strong in, but I think there are a number of things that we can benefit from across in a number of other sports. The benefit of having the collaboration or the networking with other coaches. So I did a virtual camp with another colleague of mine out of Spain, and they spoke about opportunities for the players, and they had their guest players coming on and talking about what they do and what they don't do and how important it is for them in their training. So there's a reinforcing of the protocols, reinforcing of the responsibility. So, we can talk here and they say, well, you don't know anything, but make somebody from England or the La Liga get up and say something. Almost it kind of has a different. So we talked before, here are the areas and the concerns that we're having. And then collectively we work on finding ways. I am on a call talking about Jamaica and the Caribbean to his players, and they are talking about Europe and to our players. And what that benefit is that we're on the same page, we're talking about the same thing, but it's coming from someone else. And then we then come together and we have a conversation with our coaches and our players. And what is happening here is the benefit of raising the bar, the benefit of pushing, being more professional, being more organized. Sometimes we just go out on the playing field and we just take it out our head and say we're going to coach. Yeah. And what we're trying to get them to do is like, you have to plan because of the uncertainty and the unknown there. There has to be more planning. So for us at Ballers, we are taking the opportunity to inform and educate the parents. We invite, like you'd have Dr. Lawrence on now, we'd invite our parents who are doctors to come and bring best practices or information, not waiting on the government to give us or whatever, but they will come and they are our go-to. They are the ones. So we ask the what if questions. What if something was to happen? What is our plan? So the parents begin to have an understanding that at least you're thinking out of the box. We also put our hand to say we don't have all the answers. So if while we're doing something, it's not working out or you're uncomfortable, say it to us, and that we are prepared to recognize that, look, it's fluid. Week 1 is not going to look like week 2. And so if we have to make changes, we're going to make it based on so right now, them have to turn up, them have to stay in their vehicle, or how they come, and they can't come out. So we have a facility. So for our viewers or listeners, we have a facility. And because we are doing the different schedules of time, one group is on the field and they have to come off the field, and we have a half an hour break in between to allow for that group to come off, and they have to do all the washing of the hands and the sanitizing upon entry and upon leaving, and then another group comes in and does the same thing. The last thing that I would say is as a facility and as I guess UTECH as an institution, in where I'm struggling financially to meet some of the realities, this is where collaboration and networking. What do you have? What do you have that somebody else needs? And what does somebody else have that you need? And to be able to find a way to have some kind of synergy. That happens where I could say, I can give you my facility if you can then provide something else, because the finances is a challenge, but my facility cannot sit down not being utilized. So if there's a gym or there's a fitness instructor or whatever, and I'm saying this because I did that. There was an individual who was at Spry, wasn't working out in COVID. We had a conversation. I said, look, it's not really about the money right now, but if I can help you to get your fitness thing up and running, then come. And he's been using it and it has been growing. And then the parents who come and see him working out because they come to drop off their kids, they end up going to work out at the same time that their kids are working out. So we did not set up for it to be that way, but as I said, because of me saying, look, come and use the facility, he is benefiting. And then now, as a result, he's now looking at our players, injury, fitness, strengthening, and he's giving that back to our players while I'm giving him a space. And right now, it's just about maintaining a presence until we can figure out how we're going to survive. And so those are some solutions that we are seeing that we can provide and hope. And as a result of it, we're seeing that the parents are benefiting. We're inviting families out to come. So a family will come into the space and just encourage families. They're at home. We spoke about the kids are at home not doing much. So if the families come out, mama, father, brother, sister, and they come out in groups and we provide a space for them. So the mother and father probably gone to the gym. The kids are now are playing, and we are providing these situations. And then we're finding sponsors or people who can be able to offset the cost of those who can't afford to. So these are just some things that we are doing. We're growing, we're learning, we're networking, we're collaborating, and answers and solutions are coming out just by being at the table and providing our way of giving back. The parents, as a result of it, our persons have come out and we've created care packages for kids and care packages for some of our coaches because of just where we are going, what we're doing at the moment. So they're happy to know that we're doing something. They know it's not the perfect, but then how else can we go about doing it? So those are the things that we are doing it, and we're looking forward to keep pushing and playing our part.
Yeah, you're doing a fantastic job, my brother. I noticed as I walked the place yesterday, I saw sanitizing stations and
Yes.
coming off the pitch running to get their hands sanitized, and it's really forward thinking. It's really proactive, and I have to publicly commend you for that.
Yeah, so Jay, as you go into the last thing, especially on the sanitizing component, a parent came, he creates his own sanitizing station, and we supported by buying 4 from him. And the reality of it is everybody has now come and has now purchased from him. So he came back the other day and said, look, I made a infant size one and I'm giving it to you because of the business you brought for us.
Wow.
And then the knowledge base in terms of the kids getting accustomed to washing their hands and sanitizing is becoming a new normal for the persons that are using the facility that was not there before. So it's all educating each other and helping out. So that's very, very important.
But what I want, please, Andre, if it's possible, can you share that contact with us? Because I saw the stations and I think they're ideal for the facilities, fields and the courts made out of PVC. Really ideal for usage in sport. Simon,
I'll send that information.
Perfect. Because we know we have a lot of teachers, we have a lot of coaches online, so if they want to explore, please let's provide them with us. Simon, what's next for you, Papa? How things?
Next,
I know your dream is still alive of 2021 Tokyo. So talk to us about that. What's next?
Yeah, so right now we're focusing on training locally. I'm looking more at, even after Olympics next year. So trying to get a home for table tennis in Jamaica, getting it set up. So we're doing all the background work for that now. So that's later on. But for the Olympic dream, it's just we start training. We've started now a little bit. We have very small groups, maybe 3 or 4 people at a time, training together. At least 5 days a week or 4 days a week. And yeah, that's pretty much it. Trying to get back into some kind of rhythm, something normal, and then see what happens to the rest of the world, and then we'll move on from there.
It's really a lot of wait and see, but I'm happy that you're taking a proper step and you're getting yourself prepared. I just hope Mr. Watson is allowing you sufficient social distancing, because he always seems to want to be up in that space.
Yeah, he's always there. I don't know why. He can't get rid of him. Always sticking around.
Dr. Lawrence, I just want to wrap up with a couple of questions to you. So one, there is a participant asking, can COVID-19 be transmitted through water? Are there any risk in water sports? So I think it's can be transmitted through swimming and water sport.
That was something I was thinking about because we do aquatics in the office, and I didn't see an increased risk as it relates to having COVID being transmitted through water. It depends on the type of the water. If it's chlorinated, yes or no. I'm not 100% sure because when we did it for our office, the researchers I found said that it was okay. So that's why we opened up back, aquatics, different, not a lot of persons in the pool at the same time, maybe one. But I don't know what the research is saying right now.
Things are so fluid where COVID-19 is concerned. There's another question going to you, and it's asking, how has it been for you in terms of, because we recognize that all the other panelists, they're speaking about the of technology and online interactions with players and athletes, students. How has it been for you using that modality, using online contacts or interactions to treat patients and keep in contact with them?
Right now, I'm going to tell you something. Boy, my staff, I love them, you see. Maybe 2 years ago, I'm like, it's the telehealth now. Come, let's do telehealth. Nobody not taking me on. And we did a little survey in the office to ask the clients to say, if we did telehealth, how would that look for you? Would you do it? And some of them are like, no, I'm not doing physical therapy online. But COVID came and said, you don't have a choice right now. So in terms of business, during the March-April period, business definitely went down because no one wanted to come out and no one was trying to, be infected. So we didn't have clients coming out. And then you had some persons who were timid as it related to telehealth. But when we did our telehealth session, they were successful in terms of implementing what we needed to have done and getting the results that we needed to get. So that was good. Right now, we're not doing as much because I think it's more, preference in terms of the staff doing face-to-face versus telehealth, but that is still open at the end of the day. The office as it relates to cleaning in terms of the rooms and stuff like that, that pretty much stays the same because it's a health environment and we need to clean after each client. And so what changed is more, did that person touch the door? Did they touch the buzzer outside? So now we're cleaning the buzzer on the outside, the door to enter, the 3 doors to enter the treatment room, stuff like that. So am I going to be the only one touching these so that I open for the clients, just frequently touched areas that we weren't thinking about before. We had to address as it relates to sanitization and cleaning. And then wear masks as you enter. We, sanitize our hands. Some persons have their own personal sanitization stuff. We have ours, and we just try to stay still far from clients as much as possible. If we have to touch, we touch, but then we still keep distance if necessary.
Perfect. We're about to wrap up. I want to just give 30 seconds to each of
No, before we wrap up, I'm going to use a piece of
30
seconds just to say this to persons. As it relates to just a quick thing, if you want the information, so for instance, the face shield story, the CDC, Center for Disease Control and Prevention, they have a statement out as it relates to face shields and if you can use it. So go on Google, look for their statements. And then 2, there has been studies done before. There is a study, what is it called? It was done in 2014, efficacy of face shields against cough aerosol droplets from a cough simulator. You can look into that as it relates to the results that they found. It was influenza that they use, and I do know that influenza is different from corona, but it speaks about, people being tested, coughing 8 inches away, how much exposure in terms of 96% of it during that period immediately after the cough. that was shielded by the face shield. And then they'll talk about the face shield as it relates to, yes, it's covering eyes, nose, mouth, ears. That's, you know, persons can get the coronavirus, so it should really come right across. I went to the bank one day and I see a face shield that just covered the face and the ear and everything was going here. And I was like, what's happening there? So if you're going to be using the face shield, just make sure you know what you should be doing in terms of wearing it, where it should cover, how far it should extend from the sides and underneath the chin as well. And as Andre was saying, he had on his face shield. It's something is always better than nothing, right? So there is research out there from these organizations to tell you right now what's the recommendation.
Yeah, and for sure, there are other safety considerations that you have to take into account, depending on the type of sport. So 30 seconds. Nahil, before we close, 30 seconds, what can you leave our viewers with?
Well, my thing is I just want us to keep physical education alive. I don't want us to get stuck in the classroom. I think it is our responsibility to keep our children active. It is going to be a lot of work initially, but it will get easier. And as I said, we just need to be creative. There was also something that I should have mentioned that I forgot, and it's for when you're doing your inventory, I would suggest that you just kind of label your equipment because it helps in the whole process. I believe it will help when it comes to sanitation, and if you assign a particular equipment to a particular student, then it will be easier for them to identify which one they were working with if we don't want them to share, etc. But I do believe that there are lots of options that we have, and it's just for us to be creative. It's going to take a lot of teamwork as departments to get it out there. And of course, I mean, UTECH is always available. You can give us a call. We're the Caribbean School of Sports Sciences. We know how to make it happen. So just get in touch with us and we can always share ideas. It's going to be unique to your circumstance because I know every institution is different, and you will just have to make the adaptations as you see fit and suitable for your institution. But it is possible despite anything. That's it.
The only reason I'm not going to comment about your 30 seconds is because you are from the University of Technology. But I will move over to the other people. 30 seconds to wrap up. Just give us your closing remark and let's move forward, close up the show today. Simon. Yes, sir.
30 seconds starting stopwatch now. I just want to make sure that for all the athletes who are watching, if the athletes are watching, to make sure that you take care of yourself when it comes to training, because it's very hard to zone into what you're doing and forget that you mustn't touch this person and get too involved. So, but yes, and for everybody who is in Mrs. Brown Register's class, I apologize for your behavior. She can't help it.
Please tell Kane to leave your towels and your bottles and everything alone, all right?
I tell him 6 feet.
And all the very best to you and Kane. We really do hope that you qualify for the World Cup. Your dream is really for the Olympics, I'm sorry. Your dream is really part of our dream. And for both, yes, because you do have a World Cup too in table tennis. Your dream is also our dream, and we're right behind you cheering you on. It's all the very best.
Thank you.
Andre?
Yeah, just from the coaches and the PE instructors that are out there, sport is a very, very important part of our life, and we have a role to play. So collaborate, network. It's constantly moving, but we have an opportunity to be responsible, and while being responsible, can help to educate and help our players to improve and to get better. If it's not working, I point the finger at myself and say it's because we have not created a solution. So we are the solution, and we need to find a way to make it work. Let's look to each other, find solutions together, and get the youth out there, get them trained, get them prepared. And when it opens up, we'll be all grateful for what we contributed then, so that they will be able to take advantage of the way. So all the best, Simon, too. Do believe that you guys will do great for us as a country. And thanks for being a part of the panel. Thanks for the invitation.
Yeah, bro. Dr. Lawrence, I'm giving you another 30 seconds.
I thought thought I used up my 30 seconds. All right, fine, Simon, fine. One, it was great being here. Two, remember to be responsible people. Remember that the numbers of cases that were out there while we're in-house was less than the number of cases that's out there right now. So you have to be responsible with educating yourself and staying with the standards in terms of the safety protocol. Three, remember that social distancing, they say right now, is leading. So you have to be aware of doing that. Four, something in terms of face covering is better than nothing. So at the end of the day, be responsible, find out the information, protect yourself, and stay safe. What else? If you want more, I do a lot of things on Everything Therapy page at IG. So come on over anytime.
Love the energy. We started with energy and we're closing with energy. Love it. Let me say in closing that these are times where the innovative will thrive. Let's think outside of the box. In fact, there's no box. We can find the solutions collectively. Let's keep sport alive because there are many persons who are depending on it for one reason or the other. Our athletes are dependent because their opportunities and dreams tied into what they do every single day. From a health perspective, we have to keep the nation healthy. So let's go a little bit further. Let's challenge ourselves. Let's collaborate. Let's put our best foot forward to ensuring that sport stays alive. I want to thank you so much. My name is Andre Waugh. I was a facilitator for this morning's panel discussion. Let me hand over to the very capable Denise Wisdom, who will bring the proceedings to a close. Thank you for joining us. Yeah, unmute. Unmute, Denise.
Unmute, Denise.
My bad. Technology. Okay, so thank you to the panelists. Thank you all very much. We appreciate what you've done, what you've said. We're at the end. And so, ladies and gentlemen, I'm pleased to be moving the vote of thanks for this webinar. COVID-19 has forced us to do so many things as a means of survival. As a school, we were forced into thinking about how we could remain relevant in this season, especially when the playing of sport has been suspended for a while, and we are still grappling with how to create a new normal. After a couple of weeks of deliberation, we were able to come up with this product along with some others. And though the execution sometimes seemed daunting, we made it. I would like to thank our head of school, Dr. Donna Marie Winter Adams, for supporting our vision and for pushing us to make ourselves an institution proud. To our panelists who came on board to deliver so effortlessly yet passionately, we are extremely grateful. To our moderator who guided us through the program with such finesse, thanks a million. My team, Heather Bernard, Nahil Brown Legister, Tetla Roy Henry, Ian Sean Murdoch, and Andre Waugh, that saw the dream and worked tirelessly to make it a reality. I thank you from the bottom of my heart. I believe we did make our institution proud. I thank the Almighty God for bringing together this team of gifted and committed individuals for such a time as this, and for placing within each of our participants a passion for sport. We are happy each of you could join us today. I have to say that when we were planning, we expected 100. I mean, when the registration started, we were expecting at least 100 persons. And as we wrapped up our test run session last evening, we were on the brink of 200 registrants. God be the glory. Ladies and gentlemen, we have come to the end of this first part of the two-part series webinar. Thank you for coming. We look forward to seeing you for part 2. We're out. Thank you.
People. All right. Thanks for joining us.
All right.
Sanitize.
Sanitize.
sanitize the place, the company that provided the sanitizer.
Oh, sanitize, yeah.
Sanitize, and it's 7781903.
Yeah, reach out. We should have posted some pictures of what. We'll circulate that.
Okay, people are
We'll
logging
send
on.
you some photographs, Nahil, and you can circulate to the PE group
I
uh,
will.
of the equipment. It's really good.
Well, thanks, team. Excellent job. Well done.
We're off YouTube.
Not quite.
Okay.
It stopped.
We're off. Everyone, we're off YouTube.
Good day, my name is Mr. Nigel Linton.
What's the YouTube channel?
Let me just stay here. I'm
Richard,
recording.
I'm sending it in the group.
Caribbean School of Sports Sciences.
I may have a question we need to ask you, then is